Jim just wanted to know if anybody.
Well, I heard the 6 bells go off, so we're going to start this meeting, which is both a select board meeting and a finance committee meeting, and a chance to meet even more of the amazing staff of the town of Acton. To call our meeting to order, we need a quorum. We have a quorum here, so we are called to order.
And noting the presence of quorum, the Acton Finance Committee is also called to order.
Okay, our business tonight is, like last night, is to learn more about the proposed budget of the town of Acton and to ask questions. Last night, what worked well after we tried a couple different things was just to have people on the finance or select board just ask their questions. If there's direction from John or his presenter staff about waiting until certain points to ask questions, that's fine. We'll just do that. If anyone would prefer to be called on, if you raise your hand, I will at some point call on you, I'm sure. But if I lose track, just like wave your hand a little more frantically and I will find you. Got nothing else as an introductory remark, and I'm going to hand it over to John and he can hand it over to everybody else.
Good evening. Thank you. We're excited to be here for night 2 of the budget workshop. I think last night's presentations were all really good, and we had some very thoughtful questions and a lot of exchanges that I thought led to some really good dialogue. I did receive a few questions overnight, and I encourage you, if you have additional ones that come up either tonight or tomorrow, please feel free to reach out to me, and the goal here is to give you all the information that you need as we work together through this budget process. So, last night, we went through most of the table of contents, which is shown on page 3 of your budget book. And we're going to start, we're going to go a little bit out of order. We're going to go back to land use to start, and then we'll go to recreation, and then fire department, and then we'll stick with the script for the rest of the meeting. So why don't we get started? Unless there's any logistical questions, we'll get started right away. I'd like to introduce Christian Guichard, the Planning and Conservation Director. Or you can correct the title, sorry.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Kristen Guichard. I serve as the Planning Director and Zoning Enforcement Officer, overseeing the Planning Division and Conservation Divisions, which includes Senior Planner Kayla Sauer, Planner Nora Messler, and Part-Time Cultural Resource Planner Barbara Rhines, who provides support to the Historical Commission and Historic District Commission. The Conservation Division is led by Mike Gendron, the Conservation Manager, and also welcomed Ian Bergman as the new Land Stewardship Coordinator this year. Alicia Barak provides administrative support to both divisions, as well as assisting others in the Land Use Department. And I'm going to provide an overview of the Planning Division budget and then hand it over to Mike to go over the details of the wonderful work of the Conservation Division and their budget. So the Planning Division budget starts on page 52 of the budget book. The Planning Division manages permitting and provides technical staff support to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, Community Preservation Committee, Historic District Commission, and Historical Commission, as well as the Select Board for Site Plan and Use Special Permits. This year, you'll notice the number of permits and permit types requiring board approval really fluctuates year by year. This year, we saw less permits than last year, but they were more complicated and time-consuming, such as the site plan for the car dealership at Nagog Park. Previous year permits also indicate future year's work, so we oversee the permitting process as developments are constructed, for example, subdivisions. The Planning Division also provides project management and community support for community projects and leads public engagement initiatives that help to strengthen the natural and built environment. Almost all projects we manage are funded through state and federal grant awards that we actively seek in order to implement action items in community-driven plans. Some highlights from this past year that we're working on into the next fiscal year are the South Acton Vision and Action Plan and the Powder Mill Corridor Study, which I know looking around the room, some of you have been very helpful in those initiatives and been attending a lot of the workshops. And some of those zoning initiatives will be coming forward to town meeting in May. The Planning Division sought and received $260,000 for consulting services to assist with both of those efforts. And over this past year, the Planning Division also finalized the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Wayfinding Program, which was funded entirely by grants for design, fabrication, and installation, totaling in $78,000 to implement that top priority in the local rapid recovery program for Great Road. Staff also sought and was recently awarded $25,000 in grant funding for town-wide wayfinding design that we'll be embarking on soon, as well as for the Habitat for All project and natural resource protection zoning initiative, where we were able to seek out and be awarded $40,000 for that initiative. This year, staff took on additional responsibilities, including project management for implementing the OpenGov permitting software system, which really has been a big team effort in the Land Use Division, as well as all the support we've been receiving from the GIS department. We're also serving as Acton's designee on the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Magic Region. Staff continues to work collaboratively across divisions, helping to seek transportation grant funding with the Boston MPO, as well as really enjoying collaborations with the Sustainability Department and Economic Development Department. We continue to provide local project management for the Kelly's Corner infrastructure project, so we're really the first point of contact whenever there are issues. And it's still on schedule, fall 2025, so a lot of you probably have noticed the retaining walls are up with that reclaimed granite that the town was really hoping for. The utility poles have been reset, or new ones have been reset, and the foundations and poles for the traffic lights have been put in. So those big black poles that you've been seeing out there, that's what those are. And most of you are aware, a majority of the Planning Division budget is comprised of salaries. With the exception of anticipated salary steps, you'll note on the budget book, page 55, we have put forth a level funded budget. We have a small increase of cost for our annual land use law subscription, which we've offset by decreasing our travel budget to maintain that level funded budget. So I'll pause there and then hand it over to Mike, unless you have any questions or comments.
Thanks for all you do.
Alrighty, thank you members of the board and the finance committee for having us tonight. I'm gonna stay down here because we're having some microphone issues. You can turn to your budget book, page 57 for the Conservation Division budget. As Kristen mentioned, my name is Mike Ginger, I'm the Conservation Manager, and I oversee the Conservation budget. The Conservation Division is dedicated to provide leadership in managing and protecting Acton's diverse natural environment for present and future generations, including wetlands, resource areas, wildlife habitats, and natural ecosystems. We are dedicated to providing opportunities for outdoor education, passive recreation, and enjoyment of natural and scenic beauty. As a part of our mission, we support and staff the Conservation Commission, the Land Stewardship Committee, the Open Space Committee, and the Agricultural Commission. We ensure compliance of the Wetlands Protection Act through plan review, inspections, permitting, and enforcement. Those metrics can be seen in the budget book. We assist with the land management of over 2,100 acres of conservation land. In large part of this, we rely on volunteers and grant funding to do a lot of the trail work. We estimate that in this September microburst, we had about over 100 volunteer hours contributing to cleaning the trails and to managing the trails to make sure that they're open and accessible for the town's use. During the summer months, we estimate about 40 hours a week goes into maintenance of the Arboretum, again, through volunteer support. Many of the bridges and boardwalks are built through grant funding and volunteer hours. Most recently, the boardwalk in Heath and Meadow Conservation Land was built thanks to CPA funds. We assist in the process of land preservation. CPA funds allowed us to start the process of bringing town-held conservation restrictions into compliance. We just completed the Harts Conservation Area by installing bounds and creating a baseline documentation report to ensure that there's no encroachments and that the area is preserved in perpetuity the way that it was intended, and we plan to continue doing this with other town-held conservation restrictions. We've been helping to collect data and write portions of the Open Space and Recreation Plan. This is an important document that will help guide goals and decisions for our division moving forward. But importantly, it would also provide the opportunity for state-granted funds in the future to help projects moving forward. We support the management of various projects, including the 53 River Street Dam Removal Project and Park Creation, Historic Park Creation. Phase 1 of this project is nearly complete, including removal of the hazardous dam on River Street and restoration of Fort Pond Brook and the floodplain. This project is funded from many sources, including CPA funds, a $1.3 million grant from the state, MVP funds, ARPA funds, and more. Now getting to our budget, we are proposing a level service budget with 2 small changes from last year. We removed $3,000 of tree work from contractual services and moved it to professional services for a couple different reasons. The first being that we don't actually have a tree contract, so it makes a lot more sense for it to be in professional services. It also allows us a little bit of flexibility because professional service includes beaver management and meadow management. And depending on the year, some years there's a need to combat flooding in trees, some year there's more need for meadow management and mowing, and just it gives us flexibility to combat these things as they change based on a year-to-year basis. The other change you'll see is a $1,300 increase in the electricity budget line. We formerly had $0 there and we increased it to $1,300. The reason for this is because 2 years ago there was a split from the Natural Resources Department, and there's still a few things hanging around that we're slowly figuring out and making sure that it all makes sense. And one of those was that the Recreation Department was paying for the electricity bill of the Arboretum. The Arboretum is a conservation land that we oversee. So we took that from the Recreation Department and put it into our budget because we saw that to be more appropriate. Thank you all for your time tonight and ready for any questions you might have.
Is there any other hazardous items with River Street and any other complex issues that we should be aware of going forward as you move forward with that project?
Yeah, so there was some setbacks in this past phase of the River Street Dam project. During construction, there was buried asphalt found on site. There was soil contamination with lead, arsenic, and asbestos that had to be managed. Items had to be moved around to the budget, and we had to find a way we hired an LSP and worked to try and mitigate
I'm
these.
sorry, but just for those
Sure.
of us, can you spell out LSP for us?
Yes, thank you, Jim. I should have known better. It's a licensed site professional, so somebody who comes and they'll do the testing on site. They will work with the state to make sure that these things are handled properly, write plans to mitigate them. So yes, this was a setback for the budget, but to this point, all of the major excavation on site is complete. Any excavation in future parts of the project would be with topsoil that already existed on site or was brought in. So anything that is going below that and any future surprises should be mitigated in that way.
So the site has been mitigated, basically. There's no more toxins or anything in the soils that are going to need future mitigation?
With the exception of the asbestos contaminated area, that was a lengthy process because it required a plan to be approved by the state, and they have a review process. By the time that was approved by the state, the ground was too hard and we were kind of past the construction season. So that portion of the remediation has been pushed out until the spring with a few other elements such as the seeding of the park and things like that, because at the time that we got to that portion, it wouldn't have made sense to seed the park. So there's a few remaining items for the phase 1, and phase 2 can't begin on that project until additional funding is secured for that.
And
that
will you
portion
be
of the
going for
project.
CPA funding for?
Yep, on Tuesday, we presented to the CPA asking for funds to finish the project.
For how much?
$650,000.
Thank you.
As long as we're talking about the River Street Dam, was there any damage done to the construction site during the flooding that we had a couple weeks ago that we are now having a repeat of again this week?
Yeah, with the melting of the snow, I was out there for the first flooding and I saw pictures of the site today. No damage seen yet. The floodplain is working the way it's supposed to be, but the site, there's definitely quite a bit of water on site, but the park was designed and permitted to not interrupt that floodplain, so it is working the way that the flood zone should be operating.
I suspect this is more for Kristen. There are a few things happening around town that people see, and they ask me why we're spending money on that. If we're in a problem with the budgets, I think I know the answer, but I'd love to have it for everyone. One is the garden out front that has been replaced. And I'm foreseeing some questions about the light poles that are going to go into Kelly's Corner at some point. So if you could just address how those have been funded, maybe it's a John question.
This is a great opportunity for a plug for the Garden Club and all the work that they do in this community. They maintain various town properties and make them look beautiful every year with plantings, and they're mulching things every year, every spring and fall. They, as part of the work they do, they completely renovated the garden in front of Town Hall. They installed it originally. They've maintained it for the last 30, 40, 50 years, and they decided they wanted to renovate it. So they raised funds and replaced it, and there's a fountain yet to be installed, a decorative fountain, not a water fountain. And so it's a project that certainly the town benefited from, but it was entirely, or probably 95% of it was the Garden Club and the labor from their volunteers.
And I can take the Kelly's Corner light pole question. So the pedestrian light poles have not yet been fully installed yet. Those are a cost that the town has already appropriated and funded at a previous town meeting. The cost of the pedestrian light poles is locked in, so any fluctuation in costs due to market conditions will not affect the town's previous appropriation.
So, long story short, we already paid for it. This isn't
Exactly.
affecting this budget that we're looking at.
Correct,
going
yep.
forward. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Given that the CPA available funds is about only twice, I think, that number you just quoted for the park, can you tell us if there are any additional potential sources of funding in case it's not fully funded with CPA funding?
Yeah, thank you. So when we presented to the CPA, we also presented a phased alternative that was a smaller number. I think it was just about $380,000, trying to target in on items that will allow us to continue the project in the spring, but not necessarily items that we can completely cut out of the project. So they would have to come back at a different time. So we did propose that to the CPA, and that's a possible solution where we could work with that funding. And however, like I said, based on the permitting, the items that got cut out of that phase would need to happen eventually. Outside of the CPA funding, we would like to push for state funding as well. The only issue that we're running into at this point is a lot of the state funding that we would be looking at require a valid open space and recreation plan, which at this point we do not quite have. The hope is that by the springtime and when some of these grants open up for applications, we will, but until we can get that plan finalized, a lot of these grants we're not currently eligible for.
I sense that we are done. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for all you do.
So, thank you. That wraps up land use. I would like to invite our recreation director for the next presentation. This budget, well, Melissa can explain, but it's a revolving fund, but we wanted to make sure that Melissa had a chance to talk to you about it.
Good evening, Select Board and Finance Committee. My name's Melissa Sedapani Rufo, and I'm the Recreation Director for the town. I've been working for the town for 12 years, but I've been in this role as the director for about 5 years. Recreation employs 3 full-time staff through the town's general fund, which is my salary, and then our office manager, her name's Mary Lou Rapucci, and our event and program coordinator, her name is Maura Haberman. Recreation reports to the Economic Development Director. Her name is Julie Pierce, and she's here in the room. We also have over 40 seasonal positions, including camp, waterfront, park staff, and for NARA. And then we have staff that works at the Recreation Center for our kid vacation programs. Recreation oversees all municipal recreation facilities, parks, and fields. Our largest operations do occur at NARA with its summer camp, the beach, event series, and field and facility rentals. Throughout the year, we offer programs for all ages and abilities. Recreation also develops and maintains fields, facilities, courts, and playgrounds. The metrics on page 117, you can see, shows our major revenue sources, which have been a similar trend for the past 4 years. Other than our full-time staff, our finances and seasonal staff operate under a revolving account, which is separate from the general fund for the town. Recreation also manages the town celebrations account and many smaller gift accounts. We also apply for multiple grants per year, like the state's ADA grant, which funded the sidewalk ramp project by the NARA Sports Plaza, and other grants like State Municipal Festivals Grant, which funded Acton Pride Festival last year, and it's funding a bunch of our puppet shows that are coming up. But CPA has been our primarily funded most of our large capital projects that you see around town, whether it's a playground or a renovation of a court, field, stuff like that. The proposed FY25 budget was created by analyzing the expenditures from the previous years. So these increases and decreases that I'm going to talk about right now are from the revolving account and not the general account. So some increases that I have were counselor wages. We do give them a raise each year when they come back, just as a retention, and we want to praise them for coming back to us and working for us. One thing that we added this year is an internship line, which hasn't been in the past. We do have an intern every summer, usually funded by the town manager's program for internships. But that funds partially it, and we have to find something to make up for it because that's just a part-time position, but we need a full-time intern in the office in the summer. One new thing in our budget that disappeared for a few years, but it has come back, is light towers, and what that specifically is for is the one night, July 4th, when we have thousands of people in the park, and there's no lights in the park. So that helps people get around during the night. Those are our biggest increases. There's a few others, but that's just due to price increasing from year to year for supplies and stuff like that. So the decreases, our biggest decrease is the food line item. We have a food vendor now at NARA, so we don't, a while back, we used to purchase all of our food that we sell. We don't do that anymore. We have a food vendor come in and he sells the food at our snack bars and stuff like that. So those are, all these changes are to deliver level recreation services to the community. So there is no big major changes that we're bringing forth or taking away, other than the July 4th event that has disappeared for a few years, but we're bringing it back this summer. Thank you.
I know that several scouts from Troop 1 did their Eagle projects with the rec department this year with a
Yes.
bike maintenance station for and there was another kiosk, so
Yes,
they
yep.
said they work with you and appreciative of that. And
Yeah, no, we love Eagle Scouts because they do some great work for us.
I know they did one that went to the schools, but they built bat houses.
Yep.
So maybe you work with the troops in town and build a couple bat houses they should put up there. Might be a good idea to help mitigate mosquitoes.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feed them either.
Hi, Melissa. Can you tell me on page 117, the bar graph,
front of me.
what is the x-axis? Is that dollars or people or number of programs?
I think it's registration. Yes, it's registration. So,
Okay.
so it's not money dollars, it's how many people
People.
have registered for each thing there. As you can see, 2020 is low, but that was also the
Yes.
pandemic
Yeah.
year. But if you look at it, the graph is still similar to the other ones on where the numbers are higher and lower. So if that didn't happen, I think that it would be pretty similar as well.
Sure, it looks like everything's going up, but I'm a little surprised that programs and it looks like events maybe are the same. So it's just surprising to me because I've noticed that the rec department is bringing forth a lot more programs and events, and I really appreciate how creative you're being. I think it's due to your enthusiasm. I loved the gala and the Nightmare at Nara and the Pride Festival. I'm really happy that, you know, you're meeting the needs of the residents in town and how the demographics are changing. So it's just surprising to me that those numbers are not going up.
Yeah, they've been pretty consistent, so.
And they've been well attended to, for sure.
Yeah. Programs we're working on, like, not adding so many programs, because sometimes when we see that, the residents don't tend to go to the newer ones and still continue with the same ones. So we're trying to build our programs that are, you know, well-established to invite more people in. But yeah, we do offer a little bit of new stuff here and there too, so, especially like the events that you just said.
That makes a lot of sense to me, that you want to build the new programs a little bit more slowly. But I'll keep sharing information for you to get more people in attendance, because they're a lot of fun.
All right, thank you.
Nice job, Melissa.
Thanks.
Okay, our next presentation will be from Fire Chief Anita Arnhem.
Okay, stand. If this mic is a problem, let me know and I'll take a seat. But good evening. My name is Anita Arnhem. I'm the chief of the Acton Fire Department, and I've been a member of the fire department since 1989, so I'm entering my 35th year of service to the town. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to present the fire and related budgets to you. And I also just want to say I appreciate what you do, and thank you for keeping the town's, making the most efficient use of the town's resources to provide services to the community. I know you submitted a bunch of questions, and we answered them. I hope I answered them sufficiently, but certainly happy to take additional questions as we move forward. Our budget starts on page 94. The fire department is comprised, as you'll see on, I think it's 95, 46 full-time equivalents. Organized in the structure, you'll see an org chart there on page 95. Two of the positions, impact shift, have not been implemented to date. So technically, 44 positions. We staff 4 stations currently, strategically located throughout the town: South Acton, West Acton, North Acton, and Acton Center. Services provided by the fire department are far from limited to just extinguishing fires, so that's certainly one of our main focuses. Fires that we do respond to range from fully involved building fires to trash or brush fires and everything in between. All fires are required to be investigated. We currently have 1 certified fire investigator and 1 trained fire investigator. We also work closely with the police department on investigations, and currently through the retirement of Detective Brown, we have actually lost that resource on the police department. But fortunately, we are members of the District 14 Fire Investigation Team, and we're able to utilize that resource, and we do frequently. Additional services include prevention, education, training, inspections, pre-planning, hazardous materials response, emergency medical response, all hazards response, permitting services, and code compliance, among other things. Fire is also jointly responsible for the E911 dispatch center at the public safety facility. Staffing has been and continues to be challenging, not just for Acton, but for communities throughout the Commonwealth and indeed throughout the nation. As of Monday, we will have 6 vacancies that we are working on filling, and we are currently looking at additional strategies to recruit members. Fire department provides 24/7, 365 service. As such, vacancies drive the majority of our overtime, in addition to injuries, vacation, sick, personal, and training. One of our large training draws is actually sending new members to the fire academy. That's a 10-week program that we have to cover. I am pleased to announce that we recently promoted Christopher Samet, a 25-year veteran of the Acton Fire Department, to Deputy Chief. He apologizes that he was unable to be here tonight to meet you. The charts that you see on pages 142 and 143 depict 10-year history of emergency responses, emergency medical responses, fires extinguished, and inspections conducted. As indicated, emergency medical responses have increased over the period. And then if you look at the inspections, you'll notice an anomaly in fiscal year '22. The state fire marshal directed a shutdown of all inspections, all those other than those that were most critical. Primary budget changes in FY '25 are increases to overtime, apparatus maintenance and repairs, equipment and supplies. Both of those categories have increased tremendously as far as cost of materials and service. Licensing fees have been increased primarily due to some software changes that were necessitated when fire service software was no longer supported or compatible with the new dispatch software. Those softwares include Lexipol, ESO, CrewSense, I Am Responding, fire permits, as well as licensing for the ambulance and for the pharmaceutical licenses that we must hold. Primary big-ticket capital items on the fire side. The ladder truck is about $2.1 million, and that's about a 3-year build-out. The ambulance is currently coming in at $700,000, 2.5-year build-out, and SCBA, which is self-contained breathing apparatus, you'll see it in the budget as $720,000. I'm pleased to report I sat down with Scott this past week, and it looks like it's going to be reduced to about $572,000. So hopefully we can make some savings there. I'm sure it's in the fire service. Everyone's concerned about the delays in getting apparatus. Those delays are reportedly due to diminished supply and demand in 2020 when COVID hit and vendors halted production. Demand returned in 2022, which created long wait lists, and then they also had to deal with supply chain issues, and production is still attempting to catch up. I'll move on to fire alarm. Our fire alarm division maintains a municipal 100 mil fire alarm system and radio box system. That requires testing quarterly. They have to restore lines after storm damage, and as well as the Kelly Corner project with the movement of the poles, all the lines had to be moved over. We have 2 members currently staffing the fire alarm division. As far as ambulance, Acton's ambulance service currently employs 17 basic EMTs and 22 paramedics. We staff 1 ALS ambulance with 2 paramedics 24/7, 365. That one's currently out of the center station. And 1 additional ambulance is cross-staffed with fire personnel at either the BLS or ALS level, depending upon staffing. That one is out of the West Acton station. And we also maintain 1 ambulance as mechanical backup. There has been an increase in run volume, including simultaneous requests for service. In addition, there has been an increase in requests for mutual aid for an ALS response. Budget increases in this category are primarily contractual increases. Moving on to emergency management. Emergency management is charged with ensuring the town is prepared to respond to and support needs to a variety of emergencies, including weather events, pandemics, significant fires, active shooter events, etc. I'm happy to report to you that just recently, we completed the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, known as a SEMP. And we will be looking to providing some training for our department heads this winter. So some of the things that we will be looking to do as a result of that SEMP is resupplying a variety of resources for the Emergency Operations Center, as well as some supplies in preparation of emergencies. Some pumps were used as recently as yesterday. Sandbags, I was able to obtain sandbags free of charge from MEMA. So we have 1,000 sandbags and more available if we need them from MEMA. We also maintain generators and equipment. We were fortunate on September 9th, I had generators readily available, and they actually supplied power here to the town hall for the days that the town hall was out of power. So that's what I have to report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that the subsidy for the ambulance fund has come down over the last handful of years, has come down to sub $200,000 for the last 3 years, whereas up around 400 in the past. And if I recall, I believe a fair reason for the upside change is because of the switch to the advanced life support side. Are we in a situation where if we had more ALS workers, we'd be able to do even better? Or have we reached the sweet spot where we're getting the most out of it that we could?
So there is indeed demand for ALS services, and we are looking at various models to increase efficiencies, similar to what you say. I think there's more funds that are out there, but I think we're also looking at restructuring our fees. And I think that would be helpful also to create some revenue.
So do you anticipate a day where the ambulance would not need to be subsidized from the general fund?
I think it might take some time, and we need to analyze the numbers a little bit better, depending upon what we raise the fees to and depending about what availability of services. So it's obviously hopeful, and that's the desire, is to reduce that and eliminate it.
But so don't have to worry about going back to $400,000 subsidies, right?
Right.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Chief, since we've had the North Acton station open for a while, have there been any metrics to indicate how much improvement there's been in response times to, I don't know, say Avalon?
So certainly there's been improvements in response up to North Acton. We currently use ESO software, which we can use to analyze things like that. And I have one of my tech guys working on that to get some better metrics. I don't have anything to report to you tonight, but I'm happy to get you that information.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thanks, Chief. We've actually had the ambulance take my mother-in-law 4 times this year, and they've been great every single time they've been there, so. Sorry, so I think it's a compliment to your staff, as they're doing a great job, and I'd like to see that continue. How long does the average life of an ambulance?
So we're currently utilizing it in primary service for 3 years, putting it into secondary service for 3 years, and then putting it into the mechanical backup for 3 years. So you're looking at about 9 years total. But as it gets older, there's more and more things that happen to it.
So how often is the backup used?
Very frequently.
Okay.
Right now, it's frequent. Right now, I have 1 ambulance in service because our secondary ambulance, it had a problem with the display screens. You know how technology has increased, everything is push button on a screen? Those went out. They had to wait for parts. Hopefully, those parts will be in soon. We'll get that one back. So our backup ambulance is in use.
Would it be beneficial to have 2 backup, so you keep your 2 older ones? I would think that, just as a safety precautionary, if we're, in this case, we only have 1 operating now, it'd be nice to have that secondary.
I think we've been pretty efficient with the 2, as long as we can keep them in service and running. It's unusual that we're down to 1 ambulance, but it does happen from time to time. But as I mentioned, we do have an increase in multiple calls. And in order to keep more ambulances in service, you'd have to increase staffing. So there's sort of give and take and balances that'll have to be looked at and analyzed as to whether or not that would be efficient.
Thank you.
Chief, could you speak to the operational status of the current ladder truck?
So our current ladder truck is a 2009 aerial. It's a steel 105-foot aerial. If you recall, that piece of equipment caught fire in the station several years ago and suffered significant damage. It took quite a bit of time for it to be repaired and back in service. I think it was well over a year. And currently, it's experiencing issues with, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the DEF system, which is diesel, has to do with the diesel exhaust system. It's frequently running into problems with that. We're running into problems with corrosion. We recently lost one of our aerial pads, which get put out for the outriggers, because it just rotted off the truck. So it is operational. It's not going to last forever. And also you want to probably try and get as much trade-in value as you can as well. So currently operational, yes. Reliability, it's reliable, but there are some problems.
Thank you.
Chief, has there been any long-term thought about evaluating the current spread of those stations? I mean, specifically if there are financial challenges in the next couple of years, has there been any kind of planning towards perhaps closing one temporarily or permanently?
Interesting you should ask. We've had some discussions internally. I can't, we still need to obviously discuss things like that if it involves staffing and things with the union. I will tell you it has been challenging running with 4 stations with just 2 staff per station. It has created some personnel issues where there's only one other person in the station. And if they get along, great. If they don't, well, not so great. They got no one else to talk to. And then the whole culture of fire service. How many of you have seen Chicago Fire? They got about 20 people in the station, and we're not that big. We're not Chicago. I'm not saying that. But even just having an additional person or 2 in the station. We did close Station 1 temporarily for repairs to the showers. And we moved the ambulance up to north. I did poll the personnel, and they loved it. They said it felt like a fire station. So for reasons of personnel and staffing and keeping the crews happy, it's important. And also, I think we need to look at, how many stations do we need? We did need a station up north. There's no question about it. There's a lot of population density up there, a lot of responses up there. One of the things that's floating in my mind right now, too, is there's a large project being planned for South Acton down at the Maynard line. I'll have to ask planning how many units. I thought it was 269 or something like that. Yeah, that's a lot of units, and 5-story building. So, and, you mentioned the ladder truck. It's 105 feet, but that's 100, you also have to include the distance. So it's not just 105 feet tall, you got to include the distance. When I went over some of the plans with some of the gentlemen, right in front of the building, they were going to put, I forget, I think it was a pool or something. And I'm like, that's probably not the best location because and there's no travel around the outside. So I have some significant protection concerns that we're going to have to overcome.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to say I had a few roommates like that in college. It wasn't me. So given that there's an increase, positive increase in morale from having more folks working together and not suggesting that we eliminate any positions, are there any cost savings? I'm assuming, electricity, heat, that sort of thing, but how I don't think this is a budget gap closer, but how significant would those savings be if a station were to close permanently?
So I have not analyzed that, and I don't see those utility bills. I believe it goes through municipal properties. But we can certainly try and get that.
Yeah, I would say it's less than $20,000, but that adds up.
But also, we would not have to renovate that station when its turn came, which is more than $20,000.
That's a good point. We've been needing to run on some tight budgets the last few years due to revenue not keeping up with, our overall costs. Do you attribute the difficulty in filling the FTEs with kind of our inability to provide competitive salaries? Or is it more a systemic problem that's just seen across Massachusetts or the nation?
It's definitely a systemic problem. Every time I reach out to area departments, and I'm very fortunate, I have networks all across the country, everyone is experiencing it. Finding and keeping and maintaining paramedics is hard right now. The paramedics it's their market. They can shop around and find the best deal for them, and that includes salaries, benefits, and working conditions. So I think it's a combination of all of that, but it's definitely a systemic problem. We're not alone.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One last question. What is the trade-in value of the aerial truck? I don't know if you have any ballpark idea. Maybe if we wait.
It's not a lot. If you're looking at a $2.1 million, this is just a swag. I don't even think you'll get $100,000 for it.
Better than 10,000, so.
It wouldn't fit in your driveway anyway, Roland.
No, I don't know what my neighbors would think, but,
Are you a painter?
No, I work in financial services, so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's looking at a vehicle that's old, and everybody goes through this when they have an old vehicle. You make the decision is, at some point, you get it, in this case where it takes 3 years to get one, who knows what can happen in 3 years with that thing?
Right. One of the things I am starting to track, we have a fleet maintenance person. I've asked him to track the out-of-service time for all of our apparatus so that we can get a better handle on it.
So I know there's a company in Maine called How and How, and they build fire trucks on a commercial chassis. They're four-wheel drive. They're about $300,000, roughly. And that might be something to consider in the future. Instead of replacing one for $675, maybe buy two, and you have the four-wheel drive capability that you don't have in the current fleet as a way to help mitigate, keep our costs.
Yeah, there's definitely options to look at. I had somebody approach me recently about purchasing demo units. They build a unit, they take it across the country, show it off, and those are available as well. Some of the things you have to look at, I don't know what size aerial apparatus they have. Are they using steel? Are they using aluminum? There's a whole bunch of different.
Well, I know the How and How don't do aerial trucks. But
you're
they do it's like a pumpers or something, things like that.
Yep.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just wanted to verify, so are all of our paramedics also firefighters, and do they pull shifts as either or and both?
That's what we're working towards. So when we hire some that are paramedics with limited experience, we start working with them on some of the duties that they can perform outside of a fire. So that we work on duties like doing the hydrant, setting up ladders, changing SCBA's, things like that, until we can get them into the fire academy. But they all go to the fire academy and come out with a firefighter 1-2 certification. That's our goal, is to have them all as firefighter paramedics.
Wonderful, thanks.
If you have any further questions, always happy to take them. So.
People always have lots of questions about the fire because we care so much about what you do. Really appreciate the work.
Thank you. And we have a great staff, as you mentioned. They're doing a fantastic job out there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chief, our next presentation will be from the Director of Public Works, Corey York.
Good evening. As John mentioned, I'm Corey York. I'm the DPW Director, and I brought a couple of staff. Got Chin Roo, if you want to know.
Hi, my name is Sherry Pang. I'm the town engineer for the town of Acton. I have been with the town for 12 years, and I took the current position about 3 years ago.
Carl Maria, I'm the superintendent. I've been with the town for 26 years.
Just a quick overview of the Public Works Department. It's made up of our admin staff, and we have several divisions within highway, engineering, trees and grounds, and cemetery. And in amongst the sort of the traditional roles of Public Works as far as maintaining and construction of public infrastructure and the transportation and sewer, things like that, we do a lot of work with the other departments. So we've worked very closely with police as far as trying to improve coordination during these storm events. We work with them a lot on public safety issues related to roads and other things. But we also been working much closer with finance and GIS and sustainability and recreation, just trying to improve how we sort of work with everyone and how we help out with different groups. So, I mean, some of the things that we've been able to work on and achieve as far as we've worked with IT to build our drainage database in GIS, and now we have that infrastructure in there. We started and completed sort of the first phase of going out and actually looking at the pipes, looking at the conditions of everything, and start building a more comprehensive need of what's out there versus institutional knowledge of what we have and what we've been working on. So that's been a big step forward that we're going to be continuing to work on. We partnered with Recreation on the installation of Gardner Field Playground. We're in the process now of updating our analysis of the roadway pavement conditions so that we use that to kind of project sort of the next sort of, say, 5 years of road paving of what would be recommended. But in addition to that, we use that sort of projection to target our other goals and objectives. So we'll use that to sort of target some of our infrastructure inspections and evaluations and improvements for stormwater. We work with public utilities to try to get them to target their needs and projects, whether it's National Grid with gas leaks or it's Eversource with their work. So we try to use that to get everyone moving in the right direction. So when we pave the road, that's the last piece that's happening. So it's not, and we don't have somebody come right after it. So unfortunately, it happens sometimes, but we're trying to minimize that. And I know one of the things that the town engineer has been working on is she's been working closely with the Housing Authority at their Main Street project. So they've made some progress on that. So with all these projects that we do, it's a struggle. It's even more of a struggle as we've been, like everyone else, dealing with vacancies and highway and the cemetery crew and the trees and grounds and the transfer station. But I will say, in amongst that, the crew's been great, kind of coming together to try to help chip away at the growing workloads out there. We've been able to shift different resources, different ways to help someone, say, like the cemetery being down 2 individuals, helping them keep up with what they need to do to get to funeral services, and trees and grounds have been helping out the highway crew and vice versa, whether it's storm cleanup, whether it's prepping for road paving. So there's been a lot of back and forth that's been helping, but in the long run, there are things that we do have to delay or defer. So there are things that we do with other departments. There's some, I say smaller projects like, say, recreation, but we try to help them as best we can, but everyone has priorities, so it is kind of a struggle to help where we can. And there's some other things that we try to do. We're trying to push more tree planting around town, but it's something that we don't always have time to go out and evaluate all the sites that we did kind of an initial pass of looking for vacant sites, and it's going back and really taking a look and seeing if it's feasible, and then trying to find the right tree to the right place. So that's a challenge to find the time to do, but we keep trying to do that as best we can. But probably the best example of the struggles to keep up would be Taylor Road. We started that in the spring with full intention of making great strides through the summer, and then other issues came up, storms came up, and we had to keep pulling them off to do other jobs. So they made good progress, but we were really hoping to make a lot more progress out there. So they'll be back out there in the next the coming construction season. So with all that, and then looking at the budget for this year, as the town manager has shown his budget, he had kind of projected a new position for project management and a reinstatement of one of the crew people in the highway department. So would help us to kind of keep up with what's going on and try to create those efficiencies. So, and then when we get into the operating budget itself, which is on page 104, the budget itself primarily has been level funded, except sort of in three categories. We have the adjustments in position control, then we have adjustments in the fuel line items and an increase in the machinery budget as well. The fuel increase is looking at sort of the expenses that we've had over the last 3 years and the prices. We adjusted that upwards to reflect what's happening. And then on the machinery, we replaced the sort of the heavy equipment, the construction equipment out there. It's been pretty stagnant for a while, and with the ever-growing costs and the equipment costs, we did a slight increase there to try to keep up with some of those cost increases that are going on. So that's really the Public Works budget in a nutshell across all the different divisions. So I'll open it up to questions. And
to have people just jump in and ask their questions. You don't have to raise your hand.
Sure, thanks. Mr. York?
Yes.
I noticed you're not full-time, so I was wondering if your other 22% is spent moonlighting as a heavy equipment operator.
They won't give me the keys, yes. Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm allocated amongst sort of my different roles, so I think you'll find some of my salaries through transfer stations and through wastewater.
Gotcha.
Well, yeah.
I wondered if that was the case.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Looking at the graph on page 112, the tons of refuse collected and the recycled refuse collected, there seems to be a pretty dramatic drop in fiscal '23, especially as far as the recycled refuse between '22 and '23. Do you have an explanation for that?
Probably the best explanation we were seeing through the pandemic was people had a lot of time on their hands, and there was a big house cleaning that we saw. And I think that may be remnants. I know I went through the same process myself. So we did see a big spike out there during that time period, and I can't say for sure, but I'm assuming it's still stemming from that.
I'll corroborate Director York on that one.
Yeah, I've been cleaning out a barn. But the number of people picking up, getting dump stickers, has that stayed pretty much level?
Pretty much been consistent, yeah. That it might jump between recycling that and everything, but generally the numbers have been the same, yeah.
Have you seen, I know there's been some serious issues with the private haulers. People are doing the curbside. Consolidation in the industry, they have problems finding drivers. I keep reading on Facebook that, whole neighborhoods get skipped depending upon whichever hauler you might have at a particular time. Has the unreliability of the private curbside impacted the number of people that might be using our transfer station?
We've received some phone calls, let's say in the last couple of years. People have never been and asking about it, and part of it was what most of them were saying was the increased cost in their subscription service. There were two people that were, I would say they were indicated astronomical fees compared to what we normally see. I would say the range is generally falling in, I think it's like $500 to $800 a year. We've had some people that were paying well over $1,000. So some of those, as those costs are going up amongst everything else, people were looking for other means, and so we were seeing interest in that. So, but we're not seeing any drastic increases that I'm aware of. Yeah, well, we could even look into those numbers and get back more up to date. What's out there? Yeah.
Thank you. One other question. Do you think that you've got, between capital and operating budget looking at the effects of climate change and the more intense storms that we've been having, like every 3 days, do you think that you should start focusing more or developing some more resources specifically in response to upgrading some of our stormwater management, catch basins, culverts, bridges? I know that it takes a long time to develop all of those resources and improve that infrastructure. Should we be investing more in that now because it takes so long to bail us out, if you don't mind the pun?
Yeah, as we had talked about earlier, we had built our GIS layer of the infrastructure, so we have that, and we've been starting those evaluations to do a comprehensive look. So just on the first pass that we looked at the culverts under the roads, we get inspection reports for the bigger bridges that are town-owned from the state. And then we started cameraing some of the pipes to get a better handle of what's out there, more so than what we just know internally from dealing with it. So as Ed talked about in, I think, in an early meeting, just projecting what we know right now, we're looking at closer to like $1 million a year to try to get ahead of the age of what's out there now and to fix that and to keep up with maintenance and inspections moving forward. So that's, I mean, obviously a big number that we got to figure out how to chip away at. And we do take in some money through stormwater permits that the town engineer handles. So we do have a revolving fund that we're hoping to be able to leverage that towards some of these efforts and target. But as you say, we do, say, a culvert design, it typically between design, survey, and permitting and whatever other permitting there might be, generally that takes in excess of a year, depending on the issues. And then you put it out to bid, and everything's expensive nowadays. But it is a costly venture that we're trying to get more information to get a better handle of what's out there. But the guys have been great, and unfortunately for these big storms, they highlight problems. So we've been able to find some of these since the summer, and we've been able to fix those. So they've been talking with a lot of neighbors that have lived in neighborhoods for quite a while, so they give us background too of stuff that's just unknown to us. So we've been building that layer, but there is a lot out there that just needs upkeep, and we've been more reactive in trying to address a lot of that and seek it out. We have a lot more to go. So there is a lot more that we need to do to get caught up.
I understand that the boardwalk at the boardwalk campus got overtopped by floodwater a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So was there any failure in the town's infrastructure downstream, like at the Arlington Street culvert, or was it just a matter, perhaps, that the boardwalk was set at the wrong elevation?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of this. I haven't looked, but I do know in working around Flint Drive in the neighborhood, I know there's a lot of beaver activity there.
Yeah.
So we did breach one active dam that was sort of backing it up through the neighborhood, which has dropped that. But even if you can get between these storms, it still seems like Fort Pond Brook is still somewhat high as you look around Central Street and those areas. So possibility there may be more beaver activity that we're not quite aware of yet, but we've been sort of locating and addressing what we know and trying to find other ones. So it could be possibility of beaver activity, but yeah, I'm not too familiar with what's happening out there right now.
If I can add, yeah,
Sure.
during the construction phase, we had to deal with the beaver on a number of occasions, and unfortunately, we can't kill it. We have to capture it and relocate it, and it keeps seeming to come back. So we've had three separate times with the building of this boardwalk campus. The other thing that I would point out, though, is that the elevation was set by the Army Corps of Engineers. We had to get a special permit specifically from them because it was a waterway. So it was built to the Army Corps of Engineers spec. And we really, I mean, I don't want Pete on my tail, but man, that beaver's got to go.
Corey, looking at page 111, the average daily sewage flow, it looks like you're about 150,000. which, if memory serves me correctly, that's about half of your permitted flow. What's like the peak daily usage?
I'm sorry, what was?
The highest daily usage?
Well, I think with these storms we have had, because of the inflow and that, we've had.
Yesterday or the day
Yeah,
before?
unfortunately, yeah. So peak flows, I don't know if you,
I think, if I recall correctly, there was one outlier where we saw 270,000, but normally we were, like seasonal high in the springtime when we see a lot of rain, which is not the case this year, but, we're at about 230.
230?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good.
Corey, there's on page 106, there's an entire department, Public Facilities Division, there's an asterisk there, but I can't see where the asterisk goes to. All 7.3 FTE are zeroed out.
Yes.
I'm assuming they went to a different division. Where did they go?
yeah, they got shifted over to operations, so.
Operations.
We were forming the DPW, so they have, basically, we handle all the infrastructure and upkeep. And facilities came in our division. Most of the divisions all kind of work on the roadways, things like that. Facilities kind of was the one unique division that was working on our buildings and things like that. And they do a lot of their work entails IT, so it was making more sense that they worked with Mark Hald and Matt Frost, and so they got shifted over to operations with them.
Thank you.
Talking about sidewalks, there's discussion about doing some big projects. I'd love to know what it costs to maintain sidewalks in general. Just, we're hearing about complaints about the state of some of the sidewalks. I'm concerned from what you've been talking about, how long it takes to build the Taylor Road one, that it would be hard to add to the job of having more length of sidewalks to do. Also wondering, in a project like that, if it would be your department building them out, or would that be built out to a contractor? Because it sounds like you don't have the staffing to do a whole bunch of new sidewalks.
It's a combination of both, so we have a great group of guys that do great at building walls, so a lot of times on sections of High Street, granted, the biggest wall, we outsourced that was beyond our scope, but a lot of the wall building sidewalks, we do that in-house because there are so many uniquities in front of someone's home, and then there's a lot of challenges. The guys are able to address those without, and we don't have a contractor, we're hitting change orders and costs like that, but the volume of work, we would be putting out some of these for construction through a contractor, which we've done in the past as far as some of these other projects. We did that section on Great Road, we contracted out, so.
Well, if you can get us numbers about maintenance, that would help looking at new projects going forward. Thank you.
Corey, have we been seeing the price that we've been getting for like steel that get recycled? I know I just dropped off an old riding lawnmower that had a bunch of steel in it, so town should get some good money there. And how is that running with like paper, cardboard? I don't know if we could, we talked about at one point, maybe seeing if we could segregate the cardboard out, the corrugated cardboard, and maybe get more money because it's easily more recyclable for boxes and things like that. So I was wondering how those are trending, basically.
Yeah, everything's been very volatile. I know when we started pay as you throw, scrap metal is kind of our biggest moneymaker, and that was around 2015. We went from sort of in the upper, like $150 to $180 a ton, dropped to 40. It's come back up now where it's been floating around 180 to around 200. So, but the other markets have been very challenging. So paper, commingled, all those they've all essentially have a cost to them. I want to say last summer, I think, or the summer before, COVID kind of seems to mess up timing, but we saw a big switch for a short period where the numbers really improved, and then they kind of went south on us again, but they've been generally staying close right now, but most of the recycling streams are a charge for us.
Okay. I wouldn't mind seeing Sunday hours. Even if it's only 4 hours from 10 to 2 or something, and cut out one of the other weekdays, like Tuesday. But I did send Manager Mangiarati a picture the other day of when the composting was overflowing again. And it seems like that's periodically that I get there and the lids are way up and they're just not collected. And I think the earth flow system would be, as I mentioned, would be a lot better for the town. The schools could utilize it too and probably possibly save money and be able to use that dirt that it comes out. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done there to make that a little bit more efficient, where the contractor actually comes and does what they're supposed to do. I saw him one day, went in there, he collected a couple of them and then left. And I'm like, it's like, the other ones were all still full.
They changed their delivery routines, and we've worked with them recently to put it back the way it was, so that theoretically, they're coming on Fridays to clean it up for Saturday, and then they come early in the week to clean it up for the weekday. And that delivery schedule got changed, not by us, so we worked with them. They should be back in line with the prior schedule, so it should be improving. Sometimes when the driver comes, if he's only taken a few, there's a possibility that when he opened it to take it away, if he sees too much contamination in it, he'll reject it. So he doesn't even want to put it in the truck to then contaminate the load that he has to sort through. So it's possible if he left some that they may have been contaminated beyond use for them.
Thank you.
Hi, Corey. Two questions about sidewalks. One is, I think we have 2 sidewalk plows, and is that enough to to be able to plow all the sidewalks in town within like a couple of days after a normal storm?
Yeah, we have 3 sidewalk tractors. It's just finding the staffing to put bodies in those 3. Last storm, we only had 2 guys show up. The third guy never showed up. So that puts that third route behind. So it kind of pushes out the cleanup to a following day. We try to concentrate on the school areas first, and the commuter areas, and then the outskirts, being the last route that we do. But being short one person makes it a lot more difficult. But we do have 3 machines, so.
And that number of machines, in theory, should be sufficient if you had drivers.
If you had the staffing and the storms, yeah, it depends on the storm too.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, the higher, the bigger the storm. If we have a lot of snow, like a lot of heavy wet snow, we put the snow blowers on, which takes a lot longer than if just a front plow on the, to push the snow out of the way. So it could add 5 to 6 hours per route between snow blower and regular plow. So yeah, it depends on the storm.
Thank you. And my other question about sidewalks, are they on your resurfacing list at all? Do we track when the older sidewalks we have in town need to be resurfaced?
We do. We did similar to the road assessment, we did a sidewalk assessment, so we have that program. And we're working on the implementation of getting that more in a regular routine. Right now, it's kind of more sporadic of where we try to target and do, so. We're trying to get it more into a systematic program like we do roads and everything else, so.
Thank you.
Given the absence of a crystal ball, but considering your length of service to the town and institutional knowledge, if your budget was fully funded this year and then only increased by 3% year over year for the next 5 years, is that a sustainable number?
Sustainable for what we're doing now, but to be more proactive with stormwater management and some of those other elements, just for maintenance and upkeep, we would need more to keep up with that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I can't find it to confirm that I read this, but I think I read there was some overtime for covering Saturdays because of a vacant position. Was that in your department?
Yeah, typically the train station is a 3-person department, so when the operations up there, you'll see one person kind of handling sort of the recycling area, another person that runs up the gatehouse, but kind of fluctuate between the two, and then you have the third person sort of operating the transfer station. And that, I would say, on the real busy days, that's kind of what you'll see. During the week, when it's quieter, you'll find typically the person who's running the recycling is hauling the material most of the week, emptying those out. And the person running the transfer station will be still processing that material, the front-end loader, but they'll also typically be running, not as much as you see the recyclers, but you'll see that they'll have to haul the trash. So you'll have two of them kind of out doing trips like that, and then we try to always have that one person there, so. That's typically, especially on a Saturday, why we have to backfill that third position to keep enough people there to try to help the residents and just keep the material moving, so.
I'm wondering if there's a way, similar to what Roland just suggested, although I'm not going to ask you to do 2 weekend days, because I don't think that's nice, to improve services and also cut down on that overtime cost. Is there a discussion about, or could there be a discussion about maybe, like Roland said, eliminating one of the weekdays in addition to Monday, and or potentially shifting so that we're open an evening? Because I think we used to have an evening, and that might maybe alleviate some of the Saturday crowd, because there's some folks that go on Saturday that would rather go on a weekday evening, but just changing the hours of operation, would that help cut cost as well as improve services, or at least accessibility?
Yeah, we'd have to evaluate with the town manager to see what, I don't know if there's any cost savings of just switching one day to another, but as far as efficiencies or what might be more beneficial to the public, be something that we could elaborate more with the town manager to see what's feasible.
Okay, so you think it would just be more beneficial to the public, but there's not really a cost savings from efficiency?
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud, if we didn't open on Tuesday and we did on a Sunday, we're just trading one for the other.
Okay, so no, what I'm suggesting is stay closed on Sunday, stay closed on Monday, add an additional day that you're closed, and extend hours into the evening. Or shift, Tuesday to be, you open at noon and you close at 7 or whatever.
I don't think there's been any recent evaluation of that. I know before I was in this role, I know they looked at those kind of things, but it was, well over 10 years ago. So something we could look at more, but yeah.
Can I ask a question about that? I've never been at the transfer station at night.
Yeah.
Do you have lights in there?
I know there's one in front of the office,
Because it's
but
like,
yeah.
when it gets to fall, it's
Yeah.
dark at like 4 o'clock.
There is limited lighting, but I know as the time, well, we're still closed at 3, but as it gets dark, I think there's one, but I wouldn't say it's sufficient for covering where the scrap metal is and areas like that.
Maybe you could have the night be only in the late spring through the summer to like August some point, and after August,
Then no
June
one
to
would know
August.
when the transfer station was open.
June to August at night, because then it's warmer out, it's light out, you don't need to light the place. My idea for Sunday would be, you only need 4 hours, eliminate Tuesday. Use the 4 hours there, and you can use them maybe like a Thursday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, staying open till like 7 o'clock during the summer.
Yeah, and we did start evaluating the operations down there and looking at improvements. So when we pick that up again, that's something that we can explore as part of that. Yeah.
I might be mistaken, but you might be able to clarify. Are all evening and weekend shifts immediately subject to time and a half pay?
The normal shift for the DPW is 7 to 3. So any callbacks at night for that is overtime, yes.
I have a couple of short questions. You mentioned, increase in gasoline prices. So I'm wondering, I have forgotten if there is now a policy in place to be shifting over the hand equipment from gas to electricity, which might end up being a lot cheaper to operate.
As far as equipment, I know we're looking into options as far as mowers and things like that. And some of the smaller equipment, string trimmers and things like that, I know. But, I don't know if there's a policy yet, but I know we're looking into it, and we are actively trying to buy a mower and stuff like that, so.
Okay, thanks. related to the sidewalks and roads. So now that we have the sidewalk condition information and and you're trying to make it, more regular, I wanted to check my impression that the Chapter 90 money that we spend each year, that would be, sidewalk repairs would be eligible Chapter 90 expenses, right? And do we do that now?
Correct, yeah, we predominantly, Chapter 90 has been used for road paving, but it is eligible for sidewalks, things like that. We have used it in the past. We used it to offset the Acton project out front here in the town common. And we've used it on other projects when we needed, we were short on funds and we needed a way to do it, but it is an eligible source, yes.
Great, so both repair and new sidewalks would be eligible Chapter 90 expenses?
Correct, yes.
Great, thank you. That's it for me, thanks.
Hearing Christine's question about your budget and being able to, if you had more than even what you've asked for, being able to do better maintenance, my reaction is that you shouldn't then have more work added on top of it with new sidewalks, et cetera. This is just how my brain is looking at it. Is it really that much more work to add more miles of sidewalks that then have to be maintained over time?
I mean, it depends. Everything we build now, as far as what the former sidewalk committee has recommended, they're on the busier streets, so trying to make the roads safer. So I would say every sidewalk that we're probably building at this point are on busy roads would warrant snow plowing. So it would add on to that piece. I think we're in the neighborhood of a little over 50 miles of sidewalk in town. We snow blow about half that. And like Carl said, we have 3 tractors that we put out, so they do the best they can with sort of targeting those priorities to get out that far. So it would add into those levels. It's when they're done, I would say there's not a lot of initial upkeep. It's more as it ages and.
About how long does the sidewalk last?
We project similar to roads, so we assume about 20 to 25 miles a year, 20, 25 years. Okay. But that also, there's a lot of factors that play into that. If there's, as we're meandering around trees and things like that, roots quickly will change that number. So, but in general, we're putting in the base and that, and it's light traffic on it, so it will generally hold up well as long as other factors aren't going at it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One last thing. With more and more EVs coming out, they're a lot heavier than a regular vehicle, a lot more trucks, SUVs. Is that impacting how long our roads last? Because I heard, it's taking a toll on major roads within the Commonwealth and not the country. And a lot of the, like, for example, a parking garage, you build it, you can't go and load it with EVs or the thing will collapse because they weigh too much or they weigh a lot. So I'm wondering how that's impacting our streets and how we should be monitoring that and looking out in the future, that the more and more the vehicles get heavier and how much time do they take away from the road life so that we're constantly doing more and more maintenance.
I can't say personally that have anything that I could say that could support any change locally here, but that being said, we traditionally looking at like an average of a 20-year lifespan or a 25-year lifespan for a road. When you look at Main Street with more traffic, heavier traffic, it's a much shorter time frame versus a neighborhood street that we potentially could be closer to 30 years. So there is that balance that the more traffic and the heavier traffic does impact it. So I don't have anything specific to EVs that I could say I know one way or the other. Yeah.
It is kind of curious at how more and more traffic keep impacting. I mean, they have 30 miles an hour in the center, but I rarely see people going 30 miles an hour. It's more 40 or higher through there, and that's just,
Sure.
So.
You could also look at Oslo. They've had some articles about the fact that the fleet there, the cars, they're so much ahead of us in electrification. And they're finding that they're going through tires really quickly because everyone has the heavier cars. They actually have a lot more PFAS going on because of the tires, and they are finding they need to replace their services more often.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank
You do very important work.
Okay, so I said that we would go in order, but I would wonder if you would be willing to listen to the town clerk as the next presentation. And standing in for the town clerk is her deputy.
I apologize. Good evening, Select Board and Finance Committee. My name is Leo Mercado. I am the Deputy Town Clerk for the Town of Acton. I report to the Town Clerk, Eva Skiratic. We are an office of two. In an ideal world, we'd be in an office of three, but we understand that these are not ideal times. Our town clerk budget and narrative begins on page 135 of the budget book. Our town clerk budget remains relatively flat, other than a small increase in salaries, Town Clerk Association membership dues, and office supplies. Our office continues to be the official keeper of records for the town of Acton. Our fees remain at or below average for similar-sized communities across the Commonwealth. Our election budget is completely dependent on the number of elections we have that fiscal year. Fiscal year 2025, we'll be having a state primary in September, a state general election in November, a municipal election in April of 2025, and a town meeting in May of 2025. This is subject to change if we have any special town meetings or special elections. Each election includes in-person voting on election day, overseas voting, mail-in voting, and in-person early voting, which is hours mandated by the Commonwealth. Our current residential count is 20,792. Our current voter count is 15,703. We continue to look towards technology as a way to cut costs, primarily postage costs, which we will continue to see increases throughout the year. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
The number of registered voters, do you have any idea what percentage that is of actually eligible registered voters? Because my understanding is this is the actual town population.
Yeah, that's the current residential count I checked today was 20,792. And the voter count, which I also checked today, was 15,703. I registered about a dozen more today.
Okay, what percent of eligible voters?
Eligible voters, let's see, so I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
How many 16-year-olds registered to vote?
We have them pre-registered to vote.
Okay.
They are not allowed to vote as of yet. That needs to go through the legislature.
Oh, no, he's not going to be allowed, is he? It's like giving you an extra vote.
So to follow up on Christie's question about population, you said currently our town population is 20,790?
792, yeah.
So that's down from the 24,000 that was reported somewhere else for the census from 2020, is that correct?
Correct, yeah,
Well, the town clerk does its own census, which is
Correct.
the number that Leo's reporting out. We also have the American Community Survey and all the other censuses that, the federal census. So the one that you saw earlier is one of a different.
Yeah, the federal census goes door to door, so, yeah, this is a return of street listings / census that we send out every year.
So what's the actual population then of Acton?
Which one is more accurate?
Which one is more accurate?
The number that I have to report is the 20,792, which is registered through the state system.
Did you get 100% return mail?
No, we never get it.
Okay, so by default, that's not going to be as accurate as a
Correct,
hard knock door-to-door count.
Yeah.
What, do you have the percentage of respondents? Every household got the census. What
Got the
percentage
street
did you get
listing.
back?
We typically get a response rate. Unfortunately, it's in the 80s. So I can get you an accurate number, though.
Thank you.
You mentioned, the ideal of having a third worker there. What is it that residents notice, now? Are they seeing delays?
At times, there are delays. And then as far as different functions in the clerk's office, there are training and things like that that would definitely be able to be covered by someone even at a part-time level.
Okay, yeah, and I remember that for certain election work, there's often people coming in from other departments to help out with the extra work.
Correct.
I assume
Yeah, we do.
that's still important.
Correct. Yeah, we do
Okay.
request a lot of help from the other departments, and they're always more than happy to help, which is great.
Thanks.
For reference, Wayland has 10,000 less population, and they've got 3 people in their town clerk's office.
Thank you very much, Leo. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we are getting close to the end of the presentations here, but we have some big ones coming up. We're going to go to the town manager's office next. Everyone's favorite budget. So I'd like to welcome the team up here from the office. Julie Pierce actually was here. She had to leave, so I'm going to pretend I'm her for her portion of the program. Just drag a chair over, I guess. So the town manager's office includes, we have, hold on, let me get to the page number. So on page 122, we have the org chart. Town manager, that's me. Assistant town manager, that's Tom Bejan. Executive assistant, that's Lisa Tommel. Where'd she go? She was here last night. She's watching on TV, I'm sure. Customer service, that's Rosie Murphy. She helps us out. She also works mostly at the Human Services Senior Center. Economic Development Director is Julie Pierce, who I just mentioned. And Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, that's Wanjiko Goshohe. She's here with us. And Andrea, she has her own budget, so we'll talk about her later. That's the crew. I was going to have Tom actually go through the budget, and then we have Wanjiko will have a few remarks as well.
Thank you, John, and good evening, everyone. You'll notice that the bottom line budget for the FY25 town manager budget is a decrease of 0.34%. The budget drivers that contributed to this are a reduction in professional salaries realized through reorganization and reimagining of how we provide our services, reduction in compensation reserve, reduction in professional development, and reduction in printing and copying. There are some increases to line items as well throughout the budget, such as an increase to clerical salaries and wages, an increase to public relations services line item, which helps us notify the community of events, happenings, announcements, emergency notifications, etc. This is also due to the continued increase in utilization by all departments throughout the town to help in our messaging. Additionally, our professional services line item has increased, which is a result of our increase in hiring consulting services to help support projects related to select board priorities. The final increase in our budget is to real estate rental and lease. That line item has increased $4,000 to accommodate the lease agreement for 30 Sudbury Road. With these changes, our proposed FY 2025 budget for the town manager's office is $1,909,767. Which I do just want to remind you, it is a decrease of 0.34% over our FY24 budget and his level of services. We're happy to provide any other information and answer any questions that you have, and thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And one of the other things that included in this budget is diversity work. So I'd like to just have Wanjiko say a few words about some of the work that we've been doing in that area.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wanjiko Gashohe. And actually, today is my one-year anniversary as the DEI director. I started January 12th. Thank you. The DEI office strives to develop and execute with partnerships inclusive, equitable, and diverse programs, initiatives, and policies. We serve and work with the wider Acton community to ensure that each person has a voice and is heard. During my first year, I've been working on the recommendations from the Collins Center report. One of the priorities was to create a bias incident reporting system, which I have created and is currently available on the DEI website on the town webpage. The report was first launched approximately 6 months ago. To date, we have had 5 reports, all relating to racial discrimination. 3 included ethnicity, 1 selected color, religious views, national origin, and citizenship as one of the ways that they felt that they were discriminated against. And out of the 5, 1 of these incidents is still being investigated. I serve as the liaison for 2 committees, the DEIC, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and the COD, the Commission on Disabilities. I also work very closely with Jen Faber, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the AB Regional School District, and we meet monthly. We have collaborated on several community events and plan on working together on future programs. Also at the schools, I am involved on the Leadership Coalition, and this coalition was formed to work on eliminating hate and biased speech in the AB schools through education and training programs. During my year here, I have had the honor of meeting with and working with several community organizations, including the Acton Boxborough United Way and the Congregation Beth Elohim. The DEI office has also put together several programs this year with collaboration from other town departments. I'm a department of 1, so collaboration is the key theme here. This year we worked on a cultural humility workshop, a community conversation centered on welcoming new migrant families to Acton, and Cone with a Cop, which we partnered with the Acton Police Department. Later this month, we're going to be launching a town employee-wide DEI Commitment Day, where we will discuss, share, and create a town-wide DEI vision and commitment. Towards the beginning of February, I have plans to distribute a climate survey to assess the current state of DEI within the municipality. In the coming months, we will be having 4 trainings for division and department heads, digging deeper into culture, humility, and leadership. Thank you all for your time.
So I can cover transportation and economic development now. Does that work? Okay, so.
Excuse me, John, I had a question on the town manager's budget.
Okay, yeah, I was going to include them all together.
Oh, okay. The comp reserve is down. What contracts are coming up this year?
So we're expiring our dispatch and public works.
John, I have one quick question. What is other insurance? I see that there was a 2022 actual and a 23 actual, but there's nothing budgeted. It's it was 1,973 last year in 23 and 1,981 in 22.
I'd have to get back to you on that one. That from FY 23 actual, yeah, I can get back to you on that. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that one.
Thank you.
I see the answer to my question the other night about when the senior center lease expires. It's in a footnote. It's 2 years from now, and we have apparently the option to renew.
I can give you more time to think of questions as I go through the transportation and economic development budget. So forgive me, but I'm just going to read exactly what she was prepared. Does that sound good? I'm not going to say my name is Julie Pierce. Hold on. Let me look at this. So I'll speak to economic development first, and then second to transportation. We'll cover what's done in both of these offices and some relevant financial information. Economic Development Office is funded through the town manager's budget, which is part of the proposed level services that we've already reviewed here today. There are many things that we do and initiatives that are completed within that budget allocation, but also several things that are done through partnerships, collaborations, and external funding resources. So we help with infrastructure projects like MassWorks grants and McManus Housing. A very exciting public arts program Julie helped launch this last year, which we think will be featured on the news, local news next week, hopefully. She's put together a Business Boost newsletter, a how to do business guide. These things all happen over the winter, so maybe people didn't notice them, but there's a how to do business guide and an Acton business directory now available through our Economic Development Office, which are very exciting new tools to help small businesses and big businesses and people that want to start and hang up their own shingle to learn how to do it. We have the resources now. Also provides a lot of technical and capacity expanding workshops. A workshop last year for small businesses to learn how to build their websites and several other things that she put together. Through a listing of grants awarded through economic development and transportation include $15,000 for arts, $30,000 for economic development, $50,000 for another economic development project, $95,000 grant we just received to do the economic development plan, which was a short-term goal of the select board. So again, that's a capital project that I think was in the capital plan. And because we were able to get a grant through Julie's work, we can cross that one off the capital list and take care of it through a grant. Moving on to transportation, we have 4 programs that are the primary programs in the transportation program, and we also are currently in the middle of a pilot program of a 5th program, which is a taxi and livery service. The shuttle programs include the CAT, which is the Cross Acton Transit. It's a fixed route that goes through town and on a designated route, and people use it to get to work, to groceries, and to various other places, including the Council on Aging. We then run 2 other shuttles on a curb-to-curb basis for medical appointments, essential shopping, and other similar destinations. They all stay within Acton and some surrounding towns depending on needs. The interesting thing about this taxi pilot program was it's fully funded through a grant in a partnership with the town of Sudbury. It allows us to arrange for a taxi company that we pre-arranged with to give people rides up to 25 miles away. They have to do it, they can't just call that day, they have to call the day before. And we cover the cost of that through the grant contract. And it's really helped fill gaps in our services. As you know, most of our services only run 9 to 5 through the week, and this taxi livery program is allowing us to provide services, through the evenings and weekends, which was a huge add. So we'll continue to seek grant funding to continue that, because I would say that it's been successful so far. And I think many residents have really taken advantage of it and helped them when they needed it. Some of the things that were asked in the Finance Committee questions that I can address here, there's a question about the cost per ride. And if you look at the number of rides that we give and then you just divide that by the cost, it's approximately $49 per ride for the Roadrunner, $34 a ride for the Minutevan, $28 for the COA shuttle, and almost $18 a ride for the CAT. The last 5 years, the subsidies to the transportation program were $260,000, $225,000, and in the last few years, we've reduced it to try to help with our budget, to help with the budget, down to $160, and then in FY24, it's $150, and I think that's what we're proposing. I think we're proposing $160 again this year. So that's level services, and I think Julie would have done a much better job, but that's the transportation program.
I know transportation systems always need to be subsidized to some degree. Again, given the difficult time we're having with budgeting right now, have these been looked at in terms of their ongoing financial viability? Specifically, I know they all serve different purposes, but funding $50 a ride for Roadrunner seems like a lot.
Yeah, there's several things that we've done to try to reduce the cost per ride. One thing that continues to be a challenge for us is dispatching. Many of you have been involved in the town for a while, know that we had a pretty innovative program 7, 8, many years ago, where we had 5 or 6 towns join together to do a combined dispatch for transportation. Many of those towns are not involved in it anymore, so the cost is not shared as widely. I think it's just Littleton and Maynard now that are with us, or maybe just Maynard. And so we're trying to find ways to get the cost for that service to go down, which is embedded into every ride, all those numbers. So if we can get that cost down, it will reduce the cost of all of the rides. And we actually were awarded a $40,000 grant from the Community Compact Program to try to identify ways to change our model for services. We've talked to some other communities, we've talked to the school district, we're continuing that effort. And I think that would actually have a measurable impact in reducing the cost per ride. In terms of the subsidy, I think we've been successful in getting grants, and as that continues, we can avoid the need to increase that subsidy. I think if we were to eliminate it, I think we would have to discontinue one of the programs. So that would be a decision that would have to be made if that's where we're headed.
And it's been a really long time since I've taken a taxi, but seems like $50 a ride could maybe be better covered by Uber. Have we looked just in terms of vouchers for something like that, rather than having it be a specific service?
Yes, I think we've looked at that. I think Sudbury actually does that as well. I think they provide a $10 voucher to cover a portion of your ride through Uber and Lyft. So that's something that we can continue to work on, but a lot of the clientele that we serve aren't comfortable necessarily with the technologies that you need to be able to handle to work with Uber and Lyft. And so we're really trying to provide services that help everybody, and that's a gap that I don't think we could meet without the services that we're providing today. I think that's a long enough pause. We'll stay up here. We'll stay up here, and I'd like to have Andrea Becerra talk about sustainability.
Good evening. My office is located at the Red House, where you can also find Lauren West. She's our new environmental analyst, and she supports sustainability in the Department of Public Works, and her position is funded by several DPW revolving funds. Information about the office can be found starting on page 128. In line with the Select Board Sustainability Policy, the Climate Emergency Declaration passed at the 2020 town meeting, and the Climate Action Plan published in 2022, sustainability services include everything from building community-wide climate resilience through hazard mitigation planning and municipal vulnerability preparedness planning, as well as reducing town-wide greenhouse gas emissions through effective collaboration with multiple departments, including the Green Advisory Board, the Acton Boxborough Regional School District, Acton Water District, local community groups and volunteers, including Energize Acton and Green Acton. The annual sustainability budget will help us continue to hire services to provide no-cost expert consultations for heat pump adoption for residents and businesses in town who are shifting away from fossil fuel heating. This will also help cover the cost of operating our successful clean energy coaching program In the last year since the program started, volunteer clean energy coaches who reside in Acton have supported over 100 residents, including a couple of businesses, with a variety of important clean energy adoption challenges and questions. This includes installing solar, adopting electric vehicles, and installing heat pumps, among many other clean energy adoption questions. Our budget is also supported by grants that our office has consistently received from year to year. A total of $343,000 in grants this year, supporting several projects. This includes funding for energy efficiency upgrades at the public safety facility and for the addition of 6 new electric vehicle chargers. Through collaboration with the Acton Water District, Planning Department, Conservation, Municipal Properties, and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office, we also received an exciting grant to complete several landscaping upgrades at the Red House. With input from the community, we plan to transform the Red House space into a welcome, wildlife-certified educational space for the community, complete with rain gardens, a rehabilitated meadow filled with native perennials for pollinators, and water-wise elements, including a rain barrel, to capture water for the garden. Recently, and in collaboration with Energize Acton, we were also awarded a grant to hire a fellow to support on efforts to improve access to resources and information around energy efficiency and electrification upgrades for multifamily buildings and low-income residents. Another important area of work is in improving our town's capability to respond to climate impacts and severe weather events that you mentioned previously, Dean. In coordination with the Department of Public Works, we also received funding to update our hazard mitigation plan. We're also working on updating our municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. And we are about to begin community input process for both of these. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.
I think as we saw with the microbursts and some previous storms, that the electrical infrastructure above ground that we have is a vulnerability, especially as we move people to heat pumps, et cetera. Is there the possibility, are there any programs out there to help people become more energy self-sufficient in the sense of having home batteries? I'm in a house that cannot have solar panels on it, but if I could have a way to just have that backup. I know I could I have natural gas, I could install a natural gas generator for those times, but I'd rather have something that was able to run off of the clean energy that could store up from the grid. The reason I ask you is because they are prohibitively expensive, and I was wondering if there were any programs to bring together group prices.
That's a really good question. So battery storage is currently not necessarily cost effective in most scenarios. We do have 2 clean energy coaches here who are experts and one of the volunteers actually who support residents with these kind of questions. But right now, battery storage is not considered a cost-effective solution. Folks who do it for other reasons, typically, either because they'd like to secure their home with clean energy and try to use up make sure their backup is powered with clean energy. But I think clean energy coaches are a good resource for finding solutions to those kinds of issues. And I will say it is a case-by-case basis. Every home is different. It sounds like you can't have solar in your home, so your scenario would be very different from.
So that's one of the other questions I have for you, though, and I know the clean energy coaches could help to some degree with this. I live in a historic district, so I cannot, and the part you would put it on is street facing.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are new technologies coming out where the shingles are much thinner. They look practically like normal shingles. Do you do any work with things like the Historic Commission, or Historic District? The people who tell me what I can do with the outside of my house.
We're actually starting that process now. This is a conversation I've had with planning and with Ed as well, with the new code that went into effect. So we've talked about developing a sheet for folks in the historic district to help with those kinds of questions.
Okay. Because you hear back, I've heard it from other towns, not here, that people are forced to keep their old wooden windows that are very energy inefficient. I understand you don't want to put up, I love old houses, it's why I live in one. You don't want to put up ugly vinyl ones to some degree, but there is an in-between for it. So any work you can do along those lines that helps maintain the beauty of the town, but also makes it possible to increase the energy efficiency of the old houses would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, great, thank you.
So we've been looking at putting solar panels on our roof, and we were discussing all of the different possibilities, including the battery backup. And we were told by both of the companies that we were trying to get competitive quotes from, that Acton is an unfriendly place for battery backup. That the solar panels, yes, absolutely, this is a great town for it, but that battery backups are actively discouraged by the fire department in this town. And that therefore, they wouldn't even quote us a battery backup because we lived in Acton. Have you heard that from other people? Is this something that you're aware of? Is there any known conflict between what you're doing and what the fire department is putting forward?
Actually, the fire department, Ed and myself have a meeting. We're going to be meeting soon to develop a fact sheet on battery storage installations because it is something that's starting to come up a lot more frequently, sort of a misunderstanding of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And so just to bring more clarity and ease to the process, we're also working on a certification with MAPC through a separate program. And it's basically it's a program that helps us go through our entire permitting process, and we're working with planning on this. It helps us do like a checklist of what are the things that, we could make clearer for the public to make it easier for residents to install solar and things like battery storage as well. But I had not heard that before, that we weren't considered friendly, so.
So I can address that. I think that the industry has evolved pretty quickly, and the state fire marshal's office has not developed regs to address the type of work that our fire department is required to ensure is safe. So I think we're doing our best to navigate that and erring on the side of caution. And I think some companies find that frustrating, and I think sometimes we have to do that because we're here to protect the public safety of the community. And we've had some issues that we've worked through, and I think it's not uncommon for something like that to happen in a brand-new technology. So I'd encourage the vendors that you spoke to reach out to us at the town hall. And Ed Bullen, he's very easy to work with and talk to, and Andrea or any of us, and we'll continue to work together to make sure that these things can happen, because I think there's support for them generally, but they just have to be done in a way that we're comfortable that it's safe, so.
Thanks, Andrea. I would like to see that when eventually we do the parking lot over out here, that the lights be on a motion sensor, starting at like 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, so there's nobody out there. Why are we running the lights, right? Mm-hmm. And so if it goes on, that a camera goes off and it alerts the police and they can come and take a look. And a lot of times I've driven by like the lower fields or the tennis court or the ball fields on Elm Street, and it's lit up like a Christmas tree and there's nobody there, especially on a Friday night. So I think there's a lot of things that can do sustainability to mitigate that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's things that we need to look at as a future. I know my company's, every light bulb has been changed to LEDs in the firm. And that was 5-6 years ago. So I think there's things that, maybe work with the schools that have their lights on, something like that too. So somebody drives in at night, the lights all go on. And it's very efficient. I think it was Detroit that had them on certain streets, that the streetlights were all out. And then as soon as the car approached, then they all came on down to a certain point, and then they go off. When I was in Ireland 20 years ago, you're in the hallway in the hotel, the lights will come on, and as soon as you walked out of that section, they'd all go off. So there are things that I think the town needs to look at. I've noticed that they do have the sensors out here, so I think it's more outdoor lighting that we have to do that. A lot of times, my son was taking dance class, and I walked by Town Hall at Park here and walked over to the women's club, and you'd see all the monitors on the town employees. Well, the town office shut down at noontime, and the monitor's still on. That they can be set to go off. I know if I don't use mine at work at a certain time, it automatically shuts off and locks the computer. So I think there's maybe some education with the town staff that needs to go on, but I think there's other ways that we can definitely save and help our economical footprint, our ecological footprint. It did say that, yes, the U.S. did lower its carbon footprint last year, but China and India increased, and they're increasing building coal-fired plants. So, we can do a lot, It's not going to move the needle around the world because these other countries are building like crazy.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I know you've mentioned the lights before. It's actually something that we brought up with the Wellness Committee. So we have a wellness initiative here, and we've discussed creating a subcommittee of that group called the Green Team. And the goal of that committee would be to have different departments have different representatives or people who work at different buildings be representatives of that building and help promote certain sustainable practices like turning off lights and turning it into maybe a game somehow, a competition between buildings, or we're trying to find ways of making it fun too, but it's a very good point that you raise as well.
Thanks. I also noticed that when we go to town meeting, there's a lot of printed material, like we have all these tonight. And last night, I think maybe we had we could have used our laptops and done the same thing without having to print. And I noticed that a lot of stuff's printed and it doesn't get used. And it's a big expense to print all that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of paper. Paper's prices have gone up in the last year. And I think that's one way. It's also digital, go digital and get rid of as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I know my company, we should print contracts, 50 pages. It's all digitized now. We never even print them. So some of the town, it still thinks some improvement there that can be done.
Yeah, maybe at our next one, we can ask who wants a printed copy and who doesn't, and then at the very least, we can start here.
Right, thank you.
Do you do any work with the DPW, specifically around their stuff? I just learned how bad throwing out food is, that it produces methane as opposed to composting it doesn't. I didn't know what a huge difference that actually makes, and I would love to see that promoted more through the DPW. And then I have all the little electronics around that it'd be great if I knew to not just throw them out, but I have no idea what to do with them. So things like that, I go to the transfer station, I see the signs, I get the postcards, et cetera. It'd be great to get more of that information that I suspect you have and they know sort of out there.
Yeah, that's a great point to make as well. We have our new environmental analyst is doing a lot of great work on developing more outreach on composting, and she's actually working with the library to set up like a station on all things composting as like an educational table to try to get library goers to learn more about composting, how composting works in Acton, what your options are, and more data on like methane, for instance. But that's just one example. I'm sure there's a lot more that could be done, so I think that's just sort of going to be a continuing outreach effort.
The earth flow system made in Vermont that for composting. My company has them in New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Texas, North Carolina. And basically you put your compost in it and this machine has like a greenhouse on the top, an auger system and water. It's all computerized. It takes it and turns it into usable dirt, better word, topsoil, whatever. And it works great. It saves a ton from going into a landfill and having somebody else come and haul it away. We're reliant on them to make sure they're doing what we ask them to do. It might have to be monitored, it might have to be done a little bit different way, but you can do it in conjunction with the schools, the senior center, really make an impact. And they're about $100,000. So maybe you can get a grant for something like that, put it at the transfer station, save the town a lot.
Yeah, very interesting.
It's a great system. I can send you a link.
Great.
Hi, Andrea. I heard from a couple of the other folks in the town manager's office about collaborations that they had done, that they are doing with the regional school district and the housing authority. Is your office doing any of those? Of collaborating
yes.
projects?
Sorry, I thought you meant specific ones that they were doing. Yes, well, we do a lot with the Acton Boxborough School District. I work very closely with Kate Crosby, who's the energy manager. And then with the Acton Housing Authority, we work with them to support them in a recent upgrade that they did with all their appliances. And then we work with them also in other capacities, like for instance, we're hiring this fellow who's going to support energy efficiency upgrades for multifamily properties, and we're working with her as well and identifying ways that their office can gain support as well from this fellow.
Sustainability work has just been transformed in the last couple of years since you've been here. I just want to really appreciate all you're doing. And, you know, we've seen the ways that the work, the initial stages of the work are especially generous to our budgets, because we're talking about, you know, saving energy, saving money, reducing materials. So, you know, now after 2 years in, we're getting more to the tricky points where the investments in sustainability require investment. So I just wanted to just appreciate the wonderful work you're doing and an understanding that we're approaching you know, some of that turning point where the work is going to move from saving money to being investment money in the future. And I'm with you all the way, but I understand from a financial point of view, we have to be careful about that, you know, how that transition works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great work.
All right,
Nice job,
thank you.
team. All right. So that concludes the budget presentations. As I mentioned at the start of this meeting, this is not the end of the budget process. I fully expect and encourage you to continue to ask us questions that you think of after all this information you have a chance to digest. And I look forward to getting back to you as quickly as we can to help I know the Finance Committee is probably meeting again before the end of the month, and the Select Board sure is too. So we'll try to get information quickly back to you if you need it before those meetings, so please just let us know. Again, I mentioned last night that I was impressed with the team that we have here, and I would say the same tonight. I think I'm really lucky to work in an organization that has the professionals that we have throughout every department that does all the different things that they do. And so it's nice to see them have a chance to talk to all of you, and hopefully you're able to meet some new people and have another appreciation for the people that are helping keeping this town going under your direction and support. So thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. As a way of closing, couple of comments. There might be questions online. There might be questions of people in the audience that aren't staff members. We'll be staying here after the formal close of the meeting for a little while, so please feel free to, you know, find us and ask us questions. We'll be happy to try to get them addressed. I think what else? Yeah, the Select Board, as we continue to put together our agendas, will be prioritizing, you know, questions related to the budget. And these last few hours tonight and last night are just invaluable background to the challenging discussions ahead. I also had a short conversation with Christy trying to understand how the Finance Committee and the Select Board can have more conversations back and forth. We had some useful conversations here, but they weren't really in the context where we could go deeply into them because, you know, we need back and forth between the FinCom and the Select Board, but, you know, having a bunch of town employees sit here while we have the discussions isn't the best use of our resources. So Christy and I will continue to be in touch about how to make that happen, and if either people on the Select Board or the FinCom have ideas about how we, increase that communication, either through specific events or general ways of communicating, I'm very interested in hearing. That's about it. Normally in our Select Board meetings, we have evaluations at the end. I just say if there's any last comments that Select Board members have to make, we can make them if they're short, and then we can close the Finance Committee meeting and the Select Board meeting. Any final comments from Select Board members? No. The meeting is yours, Christy.
Thank you. The school budget is released, their first level, on Tuesday. And they will discuss it at the school committee meeting on the 18th, next Thursday, so we can get an overview on that. Our next FinCom meeting is the following Tuesday, the 23rd. And the next ALG meeting is the Monday after that on the 29th. So if people could come in with having looked at, it's not going to be the line item budget. It might be. It's not the budget workshop level we need to think about. We just need to be able to come back with enough high-level discussions to have it amongst our levels and be able to go into a useful ALG with that? Okay. So that's it. We are not meeting next week. Thank you all for all of the many meetings we've done. And unless anyone else on FinCom has something to add, we'll ask Scott to make a motion.
I knew you were coming to me, so I do want to catch up with one of the senior members of the FinCom group, maybe tomorrow, like text or cell or something. I have a couple questions. But I'll save that for tomorrow, but now I will motion to adjourn.
Second.
John, is Dave Wellinghoff still online? Would you ping him and see if he's available? Because if he's really there, we need to do a roll call vote. He's raised his hand, okay.
He's allowed, I made it so he's allowed to speak.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Dave, we'll start with you. Adam.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Christine. Aye. Steve.
Aye.
Roland.
Aye.
And I say aye. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Okay, and similarly for the select board, anybody got a, oh yeah, please.
I just wanted to make an announcement that we'll be, after the conclusion of the meeting, I'll be conducting a Narcan training, if anyone's interested.
Oh yeah,
as a
that's right, I
follow-up.
forgot about that.
It takes 2 minutes, so.
Yeah, so hang out, this is awesome. But in any case, to end the formal part of the meeting, maybe there's a motion to adjourn somewhere?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
That's all of us, meeting's done, thanks. But hang out and learn about Narcan or just talk with each other, we're here to talk.